The man returned home, but suddenly found that his son Zheng Diao was having fun there, and he had a seizure.
What the fuck? God. Dad, what are you doing? What are you doing? Dad, I was coming, you fag. Jesus Christ, I thought you were dead. Do you knock, please?
Even though Lance has been advocating freedom of art, he still can't accept his son's hobby. Lance is a writer, but he has never published a book. After that, he went to the school to teach poetry, but no one came to listen. Finally, he found a beautiful teacher to fall in love with. However, the other party is always unwilling to publicly fall in love. Even though Lance's life has been such a failure, God has given him a more painful son. He wants to correct his son's correct concept in the first scene. However, Kyle does not care about this, and even steps on his father's home to express his dissatisfaction. Lance looks at the bloodstains left on it, as if the failed education was trampled on. As a teacher, he teaches a son who only knows how to color, but in addition to choosing to understand beautiful, this makes Kyle even more fearless. He not only reads color magazines to his classmates at school. Sometimes when a beautiful girl passes by, Kyle will also jump into the mountain and have fun with her. But this time, he was hit by his boyfriend.
What the fuck did you just say? Nothing? You're a fucking pig. Wow, okay. All that.
Kyle is not convinced and fights with the other party. But when he came to the principal's office to ask questions, he also knew that he was ashamed and refused to admit that he fired a gun. Lance's father, for the sake of his son's face, did not expose it and kept pleading for Kyle. He said that his son was very obedient at home and would never do such a dirty thing. In this way, Lance always covered for his son. He also found that his son turned around and looked at the ant opposite the house. Although Kyle refused to admit it, he knew that Lance was not going to correct his son's mistake. Instead, he went to find the neighbor's aunt to explain the situation. Let the other party not change clothes in front of the window. He didn't want to hurt his son's self-esteem. He thought that as long as he didn't go against his son, Kyle would think he was a good father. However, he didn't know that his excessive love and indulgence would lead Kyle to an endless abyss. On this day, Lance met his girlfriend for dinner. He planned to reveal their relationship to Kyle. He wanted to let him know the charm of the teacher's own generation. But Kyle not only did not appreciate it and had no respect for it, but also spoke rudely to the teacher. Lance's cup of water was half empty. He knew that his son had no regrets, but it was a bit too much. He forced himself to finish this meal and planned to go home and teach his son a good lesson. At night, he let his son go home alone. He was going to see the teacher off. During this time, he stayed at the other party's house for a long time. When he returned to the room without the lights on, he found that his son had died of suffocation, and he was still doing that kind of self-indulgent thing. Lance cried bitterly. Although his son was a bad bastard, he was still his own son. After a long time, Lance calmed down. He decided to let his son die and not die so ugly. After helping Kyle put on his pants, he turned on his cell phone, but he found that he didn't play at dinner. Instead, he was secretly taking pictures of the teacher's group. Lance silently deleted those photos. Then he started writing a book for Kyle on the computer. He put a layer of legendary color on Kyle's life. Then he disguised his son as a hangman and committed suicide. Then he made a phone call and asked people to take his son away. Lance lost his son on a quiet night. But this will be the beginning of Lance's story. A few days later, Lance returned to school again. He was looking at the footprints on the passenger's seat. His heart was heavy for this bastard. However, the principal thought he was still sad. He also expressed his deep sympathy for him. Everyone in the school had a little bit of pain. They were comforting Lance's sad mood. The principal also called a psychiatrist to talk to him. Before we begin, I've read a lot of suicide notes, and this one seemed deep. The doctor saw the gentle and sharp pen. The hidden emotion was buried in the mirror. He was a genius who hated the world. He was very sorry for Kyle's suicide, but now he can only mourn for Lance. After his son's death, Lance's life has not changed. Other teachers' classrooms are empty. It's good to have 2 living people in his class. On the way home, it was cold at night. Looking at the colorful magazines on the side of the road, it reminded Lance of his bastard son. The sorrow of his son's death came out of his heart. At night, he wanted to talk to the female teacher, but she was watching her lover play basketball. Lance felt green, but it was hard to say anything, because the 2 of them had never been in a relationship. He could only find his neighbor's aunt to complain. After entering the house, he found that his aunt liked to collect magazines. However, the other person's favorite is Lance's work.